Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today, Mike LeBlanc. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you
Thanks,
having me.
Ed. Yeah, great
But
to be here.
yeah, all right. The one question I ask every week is, what service and why?
I picked the Marine Corps because I had a Marine who I went to college with, and I asked him why he chose the Marine Corps, and he answered very nonchalant, "Well, because it's the best. I wanted what's best. If you want one of the other ones, you should do that. But I just thought you should go to the best, the hardest, and that was all my research.
That
That
was
was
it.
join and pick my branch.
You wanted to join the Navy, but not the regular way.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was funny because when I joined, so I'm from like a non-military family. So I'd never fired a gun before. I wasn't in the world. We didn't know people that were in the service. And so it was a real hardship on my family when I told them I was joining the Marines. So I considered the Navy then just as a kind of compromise to them because they all thought I was going to die in the Marine Corps. But I ended up having a conversation with my dad and deciding, all right, Marine Corps is the way to go. That's where I went.
No, you'd finished college when you went in, so you went in as an officer? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was looking over here in so I grabbed your bio or whatever, and it says Mike is currently presenting himself publicly as a former Marine Corps major. I'm like, well, first of all, there isn't a single Marine I know that's former.
Yeah, that's right.
So whoever wrote that for you somewhere out there, you need to get it changed before you get some more grief from other people.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Because I'm a corpsman. I was a Navy corpsman. So
Oh, hell yeah. Okay,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Yeah, love,
I was
love.
stationed at Camp Pendleton pretty much my whole time. Then, got out, got my bachelor's and master's while I was in. And so I used it for what I needed it for. Just like I tell everybody, use the service for what you need it for. They're going to use you. So you use them back. But
You know, I had this great time. I was in Afghanistan, and our corpsman wanted to show all of our Marines, how to give IVs. They were like, let's, just showing this. And so, I was second lieutenant. They were like, all right, Lieutenant LeBlanc's gonna come up here. I don't like needles anyway, but I'm like, let's
neither
let's do
do
this.
I, and I'm a corpsman. So
I'm gonna show the guys how tough I am. They give me the most junior guy they've got. This guy has the Coke bottle glasses, right? He's like looking all around. This guy's just poking the hell out of me, trying to find this vein, has to switch arms. And I'm sitting trying to look tough in front of all my Marines being like, no, it's all good. See how easy all this. And he's like, I think I popped the vein. I think I popped it. But
yeah.
but we did have great corn, but that was a hell of an experience.
Yeah. That's the only problem about some of those, because when I first got in and you had to have blood drawn, you wanted to make sure who's been in the blood area the longest, because that's usually a training field for people to draw blood. And you don't want to have that person. You want to find somebody who's been there a little bit longer so that you can survive. And the one time I almost fainted was from a stick,
Yep.
'cause I can do other people's blood, but my own is a totally different world. So,
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
or my son at the time, because when my son had fallen off a skateboard and they had to do some stuff to him, and they're like, usually it's the EMTs, because as a corpsman, we pulled duty at Camp Pendleton as the ambulance people, the paramedics,
Yeah,
and we would see a lot of stuff. And they're like, it's always the guys who see everything that when their kid comes in here, they almost pass out.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
All right, I mean, you're not just from a college. Aren't you from Harvard?
So I went to Harvard after.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and so my whole thing for veterans, I hire a ton of vets. My first company, I had 80 plus vets working for me. I had 350 people total, and 80 of them were vets. So I hire a lot of vets. I've been I think that I've cracked the code on how to get out of the military because I had such a hard time getting out of the military and wasn't able to get a job. Wasn't just couldn't crack the code. And finally, figured out, all right, I can go back to school, went to Harvard. Once I had that, got elevated through that to a whole new network. There's just an inherent trust in there. And I've been able to do some great things since.
It's that old statement. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah. 100%.
It's how it is. And so when you go to Harvard, you're connected to other people at Harvard, and you get, it opens the doors in many places other people don't have choices to go. But
Yeah.
It doesn't work for everybody because
Oof.
I'm in the mortgage industry for a long time. And I remember in San Diego, we had a mortgage company, and the guy that worked for us as our legal, he went to Harvard.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened? You're working for us.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. But I think it's always funny for military. To me, getting out was the worst thing because I thought there was nothing to win in the civilian world. I love the military. I thought what nobody does anything of consequence in the civilian world. So that was already tough. And then there's this great. I've got the poem hanging on my wall. It's a poem by Baudelaire called "The Albatross," that is about this glorious big winged bird that would fly very beautifully over the sky, but now it's landed on the deck of a ship, and everybody kind of kicks it and wonders why it walks funny and laughs at its big wings. And that's very much what I feel. That is what it's like coming out of the military. You do these incredible things that you're like, I'm a water walker, and you come out and everybody else is like, the hell's with that? They're so aggressive. Why is he so direct? Why is he bringing all that side? He doesn't even know anything. Why is he so confident? You just run into all these issues, and it's a lot to overcome.
And a lot of people never do. Like I never did. I'm very direct still to this day. I'm in the industry that needs you to be direct, the mortgage industry, because if you sugarcoat it, whatever you can for some people, but that's not me. I pretty much 90% of my business is vets. That's how I work, because I do better with them, trust factor, the whole 9 yards. It's already built in, and I do everything I possibly can for veterans. Just because of that, it's how it should be. And I've had large companies with tons of regular civilians in it, and I have to have a third part, second person to talk to pretty much everybody sometimes, because I can be direct. And email wise, even, and people are like, why is he just so direct? Because I got so much to do that I don't want to spend time sugarcoating it. It's a different world when you're a military person versus civilian person.
Yeah.
And those two people don't really mesh well, because one is like, why is that one such an idiot and not doing what it should be doing? Why are they just sitting around? We could never do that. We have to focus all the time. And you have to understand, not everybody is geared that way. So the best way to do it, for just like you found it, and I think this is it, is to start your own company, start different things, and you can control certain things. And the best thing you can do is hire vets, because they're going to be just like you.
Yeah. And that was a big thing. Like I tell my kids all the time that I'm like, I had to start companies because nobody else would hire me. But it really was people, especially when I was getting interviewed, I was 33 when I was coming out. And, you're getting interviewed by a 24-year-old for these entry-level positions who's like talking to me and going, what the hell would I want this guy for? I am calling things out. I sound confident. I'm, articulating these big things that I've done. And they're like, we want nothing to do with you. I can't have that on my team. They want somebody subordinate to them. And I think that causes a lot of issues for vets that I talk to. And so many are kind of afraid of the entrepreneurial route, more so than they should be.
Actually, it's weird because I've been getting more vets through Podmatch, kind of where I've gotten you. And 50% of, actually, it's more than that now, are business owners. Everybody's business owners is a veteran. And I would almost guarantee that as of today, the new people getting out in probably the last 25 years, those are probably 50% of them are business owners.
Yeah. And I love to see that trend, because it is, as you see, like AI making it that you can create an app now. You can create whatever just through, Claude or coding it through these different things. You don't need those specialized skills. For many years, for like 2 decades, the geeks at home in their pajamas were the only ones that knew how to do this. But now those skills are kind of available to everybody. So it's great to see people doing that.
Well, even this guy started 6 months ago, and I've made so many apps, it's ridiculous. And I'm not talking like little ones. I created this thing recently called VA Claim Bridge, which is to help you get your benefits, where you put in you upload your documents. It tells you what to do. You click a couple things, and then it also connects with the whole marketplace. But that's just one of them. I've created so many other ones because it's, as the user, you're creating the user interface. So that's so much nicer. So because when I was creating that one, I had some couple guys who wanted to help me, engineer types, and like, okay, do this, take a audio and talk into it, everything you want done to this thing. I'm like, that ain't going to work for me. I'm a visual guy. I'm marketing. So it was easier for me to create the user interface. And then it was still, I could tell it certain things to go past what other people have been able to do to
Yeah.
connect it. And I learned how to, and it's all about talking. So if you get out with what's that degree that's all about English and everything else, can't think of the degree, but anyway, if you know how to talk, that's the most important thing, how to talk to it to get it to do what you want. Forget typing, just turn on the thing and actually talk to it. And because you can talk way faster than most people can type, except for my wife. She types ridiculously fast. And she's a nurse at Kaiser, which doesn't need to type, but she types so fast, it's ridiculous. And it's stuff like that has helped us. Like you're saying, it's so going forward, AI is here to help us. It's, when the whole internet came out years and years ago, you're too young for that. But the whole thing came out that, they're like, this is going to change the world. I'm like, no, this is just another book, a phone. It's another phone company. It's another, it's another avenue for marketing and everything else. AI, they think it's going to take over certain things, but it's going to make your life so much easier and faster that you can do so many more things. I'm running like 4 different companies right now because of AI allows me to do that.
Yeah. No, that's so cool to hear. And I know VA claims, what a great one.
Yeah.
Because, I went to Harvard. I don't understand how to do claims. I didn't understand any of that stuff. Like, I would have been, I fortunately had a master sergeant who helped me.
I had a ranger who helped me just recently because I got fought for years, and I had a ranger who helped me show me. And then during the process, I was like, okay, I learned everything. And I'm like, okay. And I told him, I said, if you did this, this, and this, it would make the process. But they didn't want to hear it. They were old school. They were fine the way they were doing. Dude, I'm in Modesto, California, right by the Bay Area. I know everything about tech. And so that's where the difference was. And I'm like, there's got to be an easier way to where these people don't have to pay 5 times their increase, or the stuff that you hear out there, the different things. I'm like, there's got to be an easier way. And I'm pretty much almost there, 95% of the way there with what I created.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
We're using it right now to help vets. Like they come in, we upload their stuff when they do it. Cause technically only the VA or like DAV, those people can help you with your initial claim. Nobody else can legally.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been no teeth in that legally for about 15 years. They took that teeth away, except for in California. Now they put teeth in, and about 11 other states are starting to do the same thing. So
yeah, well, that's just great. Yeah, because the money exists. It's always like figure out how to get it.
But it's weird. The people have been getting out in the last 15 years or so know more about it than the prior one. So so the big claim thing right now is 70% of the claims that are being done right now are for 50 and older vets, because they were all denied, and we were denied and denied and denied. That was the whole purpose. There was no communities like there is now, or YouTube, where people have all these veteran channels talking about this is how you can do. Or there's even a VA Raider guy who just got out, retired. He's had his channel for 2 years now, and he tells you the real story and how to do it. And that's it. And the thing that I've done is I've taken every one of their informations and turned it into a AI agent on top of everything else I'm doing inside of that VA claim bridge. You're putting the information out there for everybody. Well, I might as well use it. So,
yeah, very cool. That's a great thing to do.
All right. So what was the first company you started when you got out?
The first one was called Cobalt Robotics. So I've done all robotics since, and and I don't know. It's not like I went and learned robotics. I'm not an engineer. I don't have any background.
Yeah. So how did you, in the military, what did you do in the military?
Infantry and then intelligence.
Okay. So how did you get into the robotics side of it? That's what I'm trying to, I thought maybe you came across it back in the day, but how did you get in the robotics stuff?
No, it's funny. I was going into finance was my whole plan. So I got into Harvard, and I was like, this is the path. I want to go to finance because I wanted to learn. I wanted a skill. I wanted like a barrier to entry skill. And I was like, if I could learn finance. So I went to Morgan Stanley, was investment banking there. Nobody in finance thought that I should be in finance. I'm not particularly good at it. And they were all like, you should go lead a company. Like that's what you'd be good for. And fortunately, one of the guys from Morgan Stanley ended up leaving, went to a hedge fund, and he wanted to invest in these 2 roboticists out of Harvard and MIT. And he called me and he was like, if you join these guys as their business co-founder, He's like, that's what they need. They need somebody that's like going to run the business, going to get along with. We were replacing security guards with robots. He's like somebody that understands the customers. He's like, this makes this a good investment. And so, so joined there. Took the jump, and that's what I really think is, the market knows better what to do with you than you know what to do with yourself. So for me, the reason I couldn't get a job, I was applying all over the place, was because I was going after all the wrong fit. I was going after individual, project manager roles and things, because I thought that just sounds like I do anything, I can pick up and do those. But really, you need to get pulled into these things. So it was just about getting in there and then listening. A lot of people wouldn't have taken that offer as I had it. I had other offers to go into private equity at the time. And a lot of people would have said, no, that's my plan. That's what I tried so hard to get. I'm going to do that. But, I heard these robot guys, and I thought I can add a lot of value there. And took that jump and learned a ton during that time.
And how long were you there?
6 years, I think. But that, and it was funny because at the time I was running that, we got robots, we got almost 1,000 robots out. We were putting them 9 countries, 4 continents. So it was very, I had a lot of veterans going and launching these things in Japan, England, and Ireland, where we were going. But you're running that. It was all the kind of stuff that I don't think that I'm particularly good at, but I think a lot of vets are just good at this kind of stuff. And I was thinking, man, why did I do a hardware company? This is so hard. There's so much maintenance. There's all this red tape, all these hard things. But just as we sold that company, all of a sudden humanoids, Elon was coming out and saying that humanoids, robots in the shapes of humans, are going to be the most sold product anywhere. And so the investor market was big for that. And I got to look back and go, oh, I was being positioned for that the whole time. That's a lot of times you don't know what that chapter means in your life until the next chapter comes. Right. And that's exactly what happened there.
Well, when the door's open, you got to walk through it.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem. Some of the times the door that's open for us, we don't walk through it because we think we should go do something else. And it's knowing who, as a company, it's like the same thing with you as an individual. You need to know who your perfect client is. So if you're a company, you need to know that, which everybody calls avatar today. But for most people, they always go, what's an avatar? So it's just easier when I say perfect client. And that's the same thing for you. What makes you happy? And that for you to find out who your perfect client is who you want to serve. And for me, I know exactly who it is because I do 14 shows a week of different things. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy telling people stories. And then I also do that in the mortgage industry and a bunch of other stuff I do. So that's what I do. And you need to know that because otherwise you're not happy. And people go, well, how do I find that out? Well, what makes you happy with what you do? And it sounds to me like you like the robotics stuff, even though that was not something you were, shown early on. But things today, man, totally different world than it was 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago with everything. It's so much faster. It's like, in 6 months, it's like 10 years.
Yeah.
It used to be.
Oh, it's nuts. And that's the thing, like, robots don't particularly speak to me. I don't have a bunch of robot comic books or something when I was a kid. But I love leading a company. I love leading a fast growing company. I love getting to hire people, develop them. I think I love what vets love. Everybody's kind of in that same position of loving all this kind of stuff. But that's the thing, you can, there's much more access to it, and people have more opportunities than they ever think. But we say no to stuff all the time because it's not part of the plan. But it's amazing where it goes if you start saying yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing they say from that, to change your life, start saying yes to everything instead of no. Yeah. Because it's so easy to say no, but just start saying yes to, hey, come do this thing. Okay. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know how it's going to do. And that's why my wife always asked me a couple of years ago, why are you doing all these podcasts? Because I don't get in trouble anymore when I ask questions, because I used to get in trouble around a dinner table and my wife would grab and ask me to shut up because I'm asking these questions like, why'd you vote that way? Not because I thought they were stupid. I just wanted to understand their thought process behind whatever I asked them. And now I get to do that and nobody gets to grab my leg and tell me to shut up.
I love that. That's great. But that is, I think, I don't know if all the services have this, go internal. Is that a phrase you guys say in the Navy?
I don't know. I haven't heard
So
that.
the Marine Corps always talks about, it says don't go internal, which means when you're out there and you are hungry and you're tired and all of these things, you want to go into yourself and just not interact with anybody. And once you get in your head like that, you're done for, because you're going to go down this terrible rabbit hole of how bad everything is. And you see these guys do it. You see them do it in courses. You see them do it in combat zones. Like they go totally inside themselves. But the answer is external. And for me, I didn't understand that when I was getting out. I thought about the market as this thing separate from me. And I was like, just give me my job, give me my spot in, and I'll grow in it. But it turns out it is from, if you want to do this stuff, go and talk to a lot of people, go learn from them, people will offer you things when you are a fit. And it's amazing. If you you can't go and have 100 conversations without somebody giving you the clue to the next step. So that's kind of the path for me is.
But you also, and please, you went to Harvard, please, it opened doors that is not there for many people. I mean, it's not, if they go to Yale, it's not the same as Harvard, but they still have openings. I know that's a big thing, but I'm just saying those, huh?
It's funny. People, so people now I've got a really cool resume, right? Because I've got Marines, I've got Harvard, I've had big investors, Sequoia Founders Fund, all these people, and in a multi-billion-dollar company now. I've got cool stamps. But Harvard, I'll never forget, I was living in a 400 square foot apartment with my wife when I decided I was going to study for the GMAT. I bought whiteboard paint, painted one of our walls with that, so you can just draw right on it. And I said, in 100 hours, I'm going to get a top GMAT score. And, it's out of 800. I was at 500 something when I started. I did my 100 hours, tallied every one of them. At the end of the 100 hours, I was still 500 something. And I kept tallying until I was over 400 hours into it. And that's when I then had a score good enough to get in anywhere. And, but to me, people don't put in those hours.
Right.
That's the difference. It's not, IQ. It's not knowing anybody. It's not family connections or anything. It's who will sit there and do 400 some hours on a GMAT. And I would have done 800. I would have done whatever. I was like, that was the path. And I'm willing to beat my head against the wall until there's a hole in it.
But that was your path. Because there are people who get in because they know people who know people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I know once I got there, I was like, oh, okay, that's.
Yeah. Most of them get in there. They don't, because most of them aren't smart enough to get in there, but you were lucky to have that numbers in the background. And again, it's, you have to find out what your strength is and go for that. Your strength was, you're like, I can do this. This is how I'm going to figure it out. And you did. And so that got you into where you want to go. Some people don't want to put the time and energy into any of that stuff, and they won't never make it. People want overnight successes, but everybody I interview who's successful, all the way from, the UGG founder, whatever, they have had 15 years of overnight success. Right.
Yeah.
Or like I have another podcast called Inner Edison, and I interviewed the UGG founder who brought it to United States, and he lost the company during the whole time when he had it.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that, and he talked about how he was on the floor one day just in a fetal position after he lost the company, and his wife told him, get his ass up and go get it. And so he ended up going back, and that you just don't. It's not as easy as people think it is. Stop looking at Instagram. Stop looking at those things over there where you think how great these people have it. They get off of there and they have a shitty life. So move on.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing, like tenacity wins. Like everybody thinks, oh, these people in their ivory towers, there are corporate jobs like that. I do know people that have very nice jobs that didn't do that much to get them. But if you were founding things, you've got all these companies. If you're going to start a company, I mean, it is a lot of hours, and they're not that pleasurable hours. There are so many times that I'm laying on the floor of my office whining about whatever and going, what the fuck am I going to do here? What the fuck am I? Because you've just got to sit there. You've got a problem that's so hard, that looks so nasty. It's existential, but we solve all of them, and especially once you get into, lawyers and people suing you and all this kind of stuff, it gets it gets grim, it gets ugly, and that's where you do have to go back to, whatever you were taught in whatever service, because we have the tools and qualities to get through that. And that's the hardest part, is having those things.
I always tell people it'd be nice to be back in the 50s doing stuff because it was so much slower. You have to, I mean, they drank most of the time because it was so much slower. Now it's like so fast. And, and I tell somebody, and don't talk to me until the one time you have no idea how you're going to make payroll.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Because you can do everything perfect all the way through, and then all of a sudden something happens. Or I had because I've been doing this for a while, and I had a processor lose me like 20 grand and on a couple of deals, and I'm like, did you learn from that? Yeah. I go, you'll never do that again, because she wanted to be fired. I'm like, I'm not firing you. That was the education that I can teach you. You'll never make that mistake again on any of those, will you? No. I go, then that's worth that money. And she didn't understand that. And some people, and when I used to interview, not used to, but still ask people to tell me like their, biggest issue or failure on my other podcast. One guy was like, oh, I lost 20 grand on a flip. I'm like, that's it? That was your biggest failure? And I had to stop myself, because I'm thinking, because for some people, that is a huge thing. For other people, depending on how you're dealing with certain things, it's not a big thing, depending on your dollars that you deal with. So it just
that's the big thing. I tell this to my kids all the time, is I'm like, people will look back at this time in my life. We've had my current company, my co-founder and I started it 20 months ago. So in 20 months, people will look back and they'll go, these guys were amazing. They raised hundreds of millions of dollars. They had, multi-billion-dollar valuation. They, did this and that. I was like, that's also the 20 months that we were turned down by over 1,000 investors, because we had a huge list in Excel of 1,400 investors that we had met through whatever over the years. We put them all together. We had 1,400 some, and over 1,000 turned us down and told us, this is a stupid idea. You guys aren't going to be able to do it, et cetera, et cetera. But I was like, it's until you can be that comfortable with that much rejection, you won't see that much success without it. If you're only losing 20 grand on a deal, you're not learning enough. You're not taking big enough swings. To me, that's where it all happens. And you've got to have that resilience to be able to take these big hits so that you get the big wins.
So what was the company that you started now? 20 months ago?
Foundation Future Industries.
And so what does it do? Still robots?
Humanoids in the shapes of robots in the shapes of humans, yeah.
Okay.
And we're the only company that does them for defense. So we sell them into the Army, Air Force, Navy right now. And then
how are they working? Are they working like a humanoid, or are they, are they like the Chinese ones you see that fall down on the screen all the time?
No, we've been doing them in auto manufacturing. We're the first humanoid company to do them 24 hours a day. So we do 24-hour shifts 5 days a week on these things. But that again comes from the guy I have had in this, Eddie Fuentes, who takes care of all operations. He and I met at infantry officer course many, 15, 20 years ago. When he takes these things out there, he's just figuring out like what exactly needs to happen. What is the human doing? How can we replace that? And he figures out every little edge case. He figures out any challenge. He just adapt and overcome over and over and over again. And that to me is why we're the first, right? We do have more robust technology art, and we have great engineers on this stuff that do it. But that operational detail of being able to overcome those things, it takes what vets have. It takes experience and common sense and willingness to assert yourself.
And you also got to train the robots to be able to do stuff.
Yeah, well, that's where I say, our AI team in Munich, Germany is incredible. They were Volkswagen's AI team.
Oh, really?
But, those guys are big brain.
Because I mean the AI, because it's been around since the 50s. We've only turned it forward facing, where consumers have been using it since 22, because they wanted it to grow so much faster. People don't understand this stuff's been around forever, but because we got involved and talked it, we gave it so much information. Now it's so much smarter. However, people are worried about if it's going to take over and it's alive. I mean, it's not alive. It's still just learning what we know. If we stop teaching it what we know, it's not going to learn anything more.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it. I don't know what everybody else's take on it.
No, I think that's true. And I mean, well, that's the funny thing about going into robotics then, is that we have the internet to train all of the large language models. So language is very good at, but real world interaction, we don't have that much. So that's what, we and everybody in the sector is really fighting over, is like, how do we get enough quality data to train this, that it just knows how to interact with the world, that it knows how to pick up a pitcher of water and pour it into a glass.
Have you guys stole any of the game stuff? Because a lot of the gamers, they teach those things have learned so much from gamers being able how to move and everything else. I'm wondering if there's a way to grab that information and put that in, the intelligence in that.
We do our AI team is really basing it on trying to learn the physics of the world through video. So we have a ton of people. We just collected 5,000 hours in Singapore of people wearing a GoPro on their head. That, we have to go to these workers, Singaporean workers, put a GoPro on their head, put 4 GoPros around them, and you just collect data of them just doing these tasks. But that's what our AI team is able to take that video and turn it into an autonomous system that can adapt to whatever they need to. It's amazing how it works.
And so you haven't told them they're losing their jobs by doing this, right?
These guys, they've been buying them all kinds of drinks and food.
By the way, you're teaching a robot to take your job.
Yeah. It is a funny process. Training your replacement for sure.
Well, that's just like, remember for a while there that people would bring over people from other countries and then have their people train them and then fire those people. Yeah. Now you're just dealing with robots. Well, I mean, because I was talking to a VC the other day, because I created this, I needed to do a short URL for something, and I didn't want to pay $29 a month. So I created my own software that did it. Then I added a QR code that's smart where you can change the location. Once you print it, you don't have to reprint it. Just change the URL and everything else. You can have it changed by the hour, changed by geolocation, whatever. And I told the guy, this is what I did with Lovable, and it took me like 4 hours. He started laughing because he goes, last year, I got a buddy of mine $3 million to build one of those. And you did it in 4 hours with Lovable. And so, yeah, that's how, and so that thing's out there called shortfuse.io. I have it because I just don't want to pay for software anymore. I'm used to the old model. I hate SaaS because it's such a, price every month. Well, before that, you would pay, $40 and you'd have a lifetime membership to that software until they upgraded it. And you never did the next upgrade. You wait until the next upgrade to updo it. And that's where we're going with software, because it's so cheap to make. And that's why all these software companies are like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And they're all going, well, you still have to do maintenance. Well, see, I created another software or another app that oversees all my websites and everything else, every API, every sync, everything, to make sure it's up and running constantly every 5 minutes, that there's not something down. And I'm like, there is another way to have something else do the maintenance of something else.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Because I have so I created a website for myself, a couple of them, and they auto make blogs the way I want them, with real pictures, everything else, and and it releases them weekly, so I don't have to rewrite. And they're written by leaderships and gurus, because I grabbed all their information and made them do that. And so there's so many ways you can do stuff now, to have it out there where you don't actually have to do it or pay a VA, a virtual assistant, to do it.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. You're doing that. I know for years we've all gotten used to this like subscriber model, where the company gets their hooks in you and you just keep paying, you forget about it, keep paying. But it's great to hear that it's going back.
Yeah, it has to, because it's so, think about what you can create. I have stuff that I'm finishing up. I use a certain software from loan processing. I created my own.
Yeah.
The way I want it, not the way they give it to me, the way I want it. And if you wanted to do something like this, you'd have to go to Salesforce before and pay the arm and a leg for someone to help train it and teach it and write it, and now it's hardly anything.
Well, and it's funny, when you say that, because I'm thinking, Bob Parsons, Bob Parsons is a Marine. He started GoDaddy.com. Mm-hmm. This is his book, great book, Fire in the Hole. But in this, I'm just thinking about this because he became an accountant after the Marine Corps. He was a Vietnam guy, became an accountant, and started realizing, man, there's a lot of just algorithmic type stuff. There are a lot of things that it's just Mad Libs, but you know what to put in. he got a flight canceled. And so he was sitting around on the Stanford campus. He did not go to Stanford, but he was there. He was flying out of San Francisco. And he went and found a book on coding, and he started to write out by hand how he would fix whatever these tax forms were that he was doing. And when he went back, there was only one computer in the building. He went and learned how to use the computer to go and figure out how to build this. And he ended up turning that into his first company, which he sold for, I think, $60 million. But that broke him in doing exactly what you're talking about, which is finding this problem, figuring out how to solve it for yourself, figuring out how to have the computer solve it for you, and then selling that all over the place. But it's an incredible story. That's what vets are great at.
Yeah, it's a pain. You find a pain.
What is the pain? Yes.
Fix it. Because one of my other pains was paying my VA people to cut up all my videos and everything else. So I created Pod Veteran, which is a thing where you drop your MP4 in it, and it auto does the sound, and then it cuts it up in all the different segments you need for short stuff, everything else, and then it'll be finalized at the end and actually go to where you want it to go. On a certain day, I want it to drop here. What you set it all up so that every one of my VAs is going to be able to work like you're doing to your people.
Yeah, very cool.
And that's just because I'm tired of paying people. I want to create stuff, but then you also got to pay to get it out.
Yep.
And that's one pain that I'm fixed. The other pain was paying too much for getting your benefits for the VA. That's the other pain. That's my big one. And I normally do a fire walk for veterans a year, to actually walk on fire, like Tony Robbins event.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it this year to finish up my VA claim bridge, because I got to get that done and get that. I can help more people with that than I can do my fire walk and just do a way bigger one next year.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a huge, huge help, because it is, you get out and it's like having to do your taxes 5 times in a row, figuring out all these benefits. And man, I don't know. I found the whole thing impossible.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, when you get out, the DAV does their job and, somewhat does it, but it's so much easier today. And I tell everybody, and the big goal is on your way out, put in all your complaints.
Yeah.
You want to get zeros. Don't care if you get anything other than zeros. Because then they're all connected to your disability, to the military automatically. They're all connected. You have 10 zeros and you get 10%. Who cares? Then you go forward as your knees get worse, as your shoulders get worse, all these things that you got injured. That's how you get your disability if you don't have it back then.
Yeah. I know. And it's funny to me because I didn't want to do any of that. And I felt like, oh, I don't want to go and say that I did all these things. But I had this master sergeant who was like, the money is there. And he was like, who gets it? The people that were in IPAC, in the Marine Corps. That's all like the admin stuff. He's like, because they know all the paperwork. Right. So they say, oh, I have carpal tunnel and I've been sitting too much. I have lower back issues. So he goes, anybody that went to a combat zone should be putting in for this stuff, because he's like, the money will go to people. So he's like, it's not like you're saving the taxpayer money or anything like that. And I thought that was a pretty good argument.
Yeah. I mean, there's 18 million veterans. And right now there is 6 million vets getting disability. Out of the 6 million, only about 600,000 are 100%. And the one thing about that is to go from, because I was low forever and I just finally got 90, and there was 2 more things that they didn't see that I just put back into. So I'll be at 100% here within the next 4 months. But I should have been here 15 years ago. Yeah. But it was so much harder back then because, just like you said, we were told not to apply because you didn't deserve it, whatever, and all this stuff. And then it's not true. And then you have people getting out now that I got yelled at. And so they're at 80%, but then you have a Purple Heart guy who's at, 50%. And that, if you have a Purple Heart, you have certain things, you should be automatically moved up. I don't care, because that stuff's going to affect you forever. The worst part is you lose a leg. That's 60%. That's not like, 100%. Because
it's not how it all works, but it's pretty how through that.
And the math is horrible how they all work. The math for the VA is just so bad. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I find it's easy to get to 80 or 90%, but to get from 90% to 100 is really difficult because of the math way it works.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know. I'm not. I don't know what I'm at, but it's way lower than that.
I'm just telling, but here's the thing. So they round, this is your podcast. Sorry, I don't mean to take it over. But what's important about benefits is, so if they go by percentage. So if you're at 75, you get 80. If you're at 74, you get 70. So a lot of people are pushed to 80. And then when they really look at their numbers, they're really like 75. And the same thing for 90, they're at 85. So when they go back and they put something else in, now they're at 89. Well, they're still at 90. And and on the VA claim bridge that I have.com, you can upload your VA letter and they'll tell you what your true number is. So then you know what you need to do. Like I was 92. I missed 95 by 3 and they didn't do my PTSD. They didn't do my sleep apnea. And there's a couple other things they didn't do. And so I should be there. But again, I told you the guy that helped me, he did a good job, but he didn't do as good as he should have done. I lost 22 grand because he didn't do as good as he should have did. Yeah. And that is what pushed me to go, okay, we really need to do this for vets because that's a lot of money.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great you're doing that.
Yeah. All right, Mike, what are you doing? So you're doing this company, and then what are you going to do? Sell it and then do it again?
No, this is the one.
Every business owner is supposed to have an exit. And you know this better than anybody. And I'm not saying it again because you're from Harvard, and you should know that where you need to have an exit plan when you're done, when you get to a certain thing, because that's where you do it. You do an exit and then you do another one.
I did my exit on my first one. Now if you go out my backyard, I sleep with my back doors open and I'm hearing the ocean waves from where I am and in Newport Coast. I've got everything that, I ever wanted. My wife and I have reached all of our goals of what we wanted with stuff. And that's why this company really was about what do we actually want to do? Aside from wanting to make money, aside from the hustle, like what is it that we actually want to do? And really bringing humanoids in, bringing them to defense, especially, to me is such an exciting idea. Who knows how life will come out from here, but it's hard to imagine a cooler job than what I've got. I love bringing these things out there, I work with all vets, getting to sell these into defense. I just got back from Ukraine. You're still getting to see combat operations. You're supporting it in a different way. I absolutely love it. So until I stop loving it or love something else more.
Do you think that it will get to a point where, so the way it is now, it's all done by the air or whatever. We're not really doing ground forces like we've been. Is it going to be robotic ground forces, you think, eventually?
Oh, absolutely.
So whoever can have the biggest army of robots will win.
Yeah, I think that, already in Ukraine, I was surprised because you always hear of Ukraine as a drone war. They've got a ton of UGVs, the unmanned ground vehicles, which are kind of like an autonomous ATV with like a 50 cal on top. They've got a lot of those out there. And that's kind of their new combined arms attack is drones do the reconnaissance, then drones come and attack and UGVs come in.
And there's somebody running both of those, correct?
There's somebody what?
Running both of those. They're not run by AI.
Yeah. But it's such an interesting space that when you see it, we were just featured in Time Magazine today for what we're doing in defense. But that is the kind of whole push of that Time article is we have moved from human battles that are supplemented by robots to robot battles that are supplemented by humans. And so it's fascinating to see what's going on in Ukraine and what that's going to look like in future wars.
Yeah, because if people don't realize how many people we lost during the Civil War,
it's crazy.
And then World War I and how many people we lost that. And then, if you look back, each time we had a war, we lost less people, but it was more because we had cameras and other stuff to put it in front of people, and that, because people are like, we lost, and during the 9/11, it's like we had hardly anybody we lost. We did, but compared to other wars and all this stuff, we was nowhere close to that, but it was more significant because people heard about it. It wasn't a small town like your son died, here's your little thing, and nobody really knew about it in the world. Now it's front and center all the time.
Peace is no picnic either. As you actually go back through this stuff, the number of tyrannical states that have police states that are killing people either from not giving them food, from imprisonment, from slavery. I mean, the world is a very ugly place, and there is just death rampant across it. So it's very funny to me because we get a lot of media because people go, "You're building the next Terminator. How do you think about a robot killing a person?" And I'm like, well, right now you're asking a 19-year-old to do it. You're asking somebody's son to go out there and to go do it. So no, I do not feel bad about asking a robot to do it.
Right.
Like I do not want that 19-year-old son in danger. I would rather have a robot there for sure.
And that's why we need more politicians who are veterans.
Yes.
Because they will not send more people to war because of it. I'm not saying they're going to send less, but they're going to think about it because they understand the whole process. And that's why we need more of those people in politics.
Yep. That's what I think. It's really tough because the people that you generally have making these decisions come from very rich families. They just don't know what it's like to actually go to war, and they think those people signed up for it. So they've already put their names on the dotted line. They owe their life to this fight. If I want to use them for that, what do we need? And it's, when you really know them, I think it's the same as, knowing police officers. Police officers walk around a much different city than we do, right? I get to walk around and I'm just a consumer as I walk around. That cop needs to be on constant notice and vigilance of like what's going on. He is a target. He is, he might have to step in. I mean, it's crazy what we ask veterans, police officers, any of these people to do. So anything you can do to get them out of harm's way, to put something else out there it's a moral imperative.
Man, that's why cops get so jaded and people don't understand because they deal with the same thing over and over again, the same person over and over again. They drop them off, put them in, they walk out the back and they're dealing with it again. And they wonder why they're so jaded. And, the reason they want 19-year-olds to do this is because of how things aren't developed in their brain yet to make these real decisions. They'll just do what you tell them to do. So,
yeah. So I always think anything we can do in those areas. And that's what an exciting spot to work as a veteran. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, because people don't realize, because my daughter made this statement this weekend. My wife showed me, and I'm like, okay, she's an idiot. First of all, she has no idea what she's talking about because people are complaining, wives are, talking about how their husbands they don't like what's going on with the Iran war and everything else. And I made a statement today, and I was talking about if you're in the military and you don't want to go, get out of the military. Don't sign up. Don't take all this stuff. And somebody posted it. Yeah, it's like a stripper who don't want to take their clothes off. I was like, that is the best statement I heard at all because that's exactly right. Pick the job you want and don't complain that you have to do it if that's the job you picked. You using the military to go to school, do all this other stuff. But if you have to go to war and do stuff, that's the way it is. And if you're not that person, when I was in, you couldn't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
If you did, you got in trouble. And now it's like, my son's he's in the Army. He was combat medic. He still is, but he's no longer airborne. And, and he dealt with certain things and that's how it's supposed to be. And you join, that's how you're joined and go to war. And that's what happens. And if you go to war, you go to war. That's what happens. So,
it's always funny to me because I'm like, I spent 12 months in Afghanistan. Before I joined, I thought Afghanistan was the stupidest war I've ever heard of. I only came to have more evidence of it being such a stupid war, but that didn't mean that I don't go. That doesn't mean that I would go and post on social media or something how terrible the war is. I'm like, you sign up because you want your nation to be able to have a strong military wherever they put it. Yeah, I think we put it in really goofy, terrible spots. We have terrible ideas about what wars we're going to go into. It's not your job, right? That's president's job. That's Congress' job. It's not you as a soldier.
Well, I interviewed a guy the other day, last week, I think it was on here. And he was talking about how when he went over there to Iraq and certain places, his job was to have exit out of there and how to do stuff. When we got there, he had a plan and the one star that was in charge, he's like, no, they have not come up with an idea how they're going to do it. He goes, I understand. So I'm putting one together for him. He goes, no, you're not, because I'm coming back to get my second star. And he's like, the
Yep.
biggest problem that he saw was from the officers. And
Yep.
and please, this is, if you're an officer, I'm pissing you off, I'm sorry, but this is what I've been hearing, is for them to get their rank during wartime.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I saw. I was in Bahrain. It was supposed to be a really relaxed deployment, and and then ISIS tore up between Iraq and Syria, and we were in the running to become command of Iraq, and we ended up winning that. But it was initially a fight between DoD and the State Department, and then it was everybody in DoD, all the different units. Everybody is promoting their capabilities to say, here's why we should do it, because they know their promotion is in there. In the State Department, they know they get to write a book afterward. They want turmoil. They want chaos. Nobody looks at a president from peacetime and goes like, wow, you did a great job because there were no wars. We look to Lincoln, we look to Washington. We like wartime presidents.
Right.
And that's what everybody's looking for, and it's always at odds of what the American people want, more only what American parents want.
And that's why I said the thing went on for so long, 30 years,
Yeah.
20 some years or whatever, because he's like, if George Bush would have came to you and said, oh, by the way, we're going to do this, but in order to do this, we're going to be there for 30 years. Nobody would have said, okay, let's do it. And that's why we're talking about Iran the other day, because it's not going to overnight change. You have these hardliners been in there for 35 years, and you got to get rid of all those before you could even get people to be able to do stuff, because they kill people like nobody's business. I tell people, you want to see racism? Go to other countries. I mean, I'm in, you're in Southern California?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in Northern California. So over where, Facebook and all those, because I interviewed a guy and he was talking about the class system, and he was talking about how, he was Indian, and he's talking about how it's so prevalent even to this day. He goes, it's so bad. It's even in Microsoft. It's in some of these other Google that,
Yep.
and you're talking about racism. It's right there. It's a class system, and it's brought over here, and it's still in America, and you have no idea that it's there in those companies, but it is.
Yep. Okay. That's we always compare ourselves to the ideal of what we think that we could be, rather than what else is out there. But there are a lot of sports teams playing the same sport we are, and once you go and start looking at their stats, it's not a pretty picture. I don't know if there's a more diverse country than America.
No.
You
can just come here and get, you know what I mean? You can't just go to other countries and go in there, even illegally. Yeah.
I wonder if Brazil or somewhere is, but it is like we do live up to our ideals on this, of bringing everybody in, of giving everybody equal opportunity. I mean, it's crazy what we do. It's an impossible dream throughout history, but it is when you live in it. You're looking at that perfect ideal, and people get so angry at how much we fall short of it. But it is other countries are a rough place.
I mean, because a lot of the other countries are like, okay, we're not taking any more people in our countries. We can't handle any more people.
Right.
You can only do so much. You can't take all these people into different countries and think that you're going to be able to support them and all that. You were supposed to originally, when you come to a country, okay, what are you going to do? All right, what are you going to do? Support yourself? That didn't happen in the last, years. It was all about, let's get on the government, excuse my language, tit, and see how long I can stay on that. And that's not what and other countries did the same thing. And then they're going, we can't do this anymore. It's killing us. And that's where it is. And so I don't know how we got on this whole subject of it, but the whole thing is, we're vets, and we're here to help, and we want to help people and make it better for the world. And that's why I tell people all the time, I don't always agree with people, but I signed on the line so that I could go to war potentially and fight for this country, for the freedoms that people have to be idiots. And that's that. And that's okay, because they're able to say what they want to say, and I can say what I want to say. But my dad taught me two things: that life's not fair. First, how to duck, and life's not fair. Those are the two things he taught me. And he always said that, you have freedom of speech if you're willing to pay for it.
I like that. Yeah, that's right. No, and it is like that's how I think we get into this, is all of these veterans are, signing on these large principles. if you're only going to, pick up a weapon when your specific issue is being fought and when you agree with everything about it, that's a mob. That's when you grab your pitchfork. All right. That's how those work. If you're joining the military service, that is what these people are about. And we do need more of those people in public office making these decisions, because they know that it's not a frivolous act to put these people anywhere. You should not be thinking, I've got troops, I should use them in any case, right? It's a big decision to put people in harm's way.
Yeah, we first thing needs to happen is we need to get term limits in place, because then you'll have more regular people go into politics again.
Yeah.
It's set up right now with no term limits. It's all about how much can I make? Where can, it's the same thing back in the war about, I need to get my advancement, and then everybody's selling the weapons, it's the same thing like in California with Newsom and his all the homeless. We're going to fix the homeless population, and it doubled. Well, because it's such a moneymaker.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So,
yeah, that's what we get into all these things. That's why wars keep going on. That's why problems keep existing.
right.
Is because it's too cheap to solve them.
Nobody makes the money, and that's a sad thing. But there's other ways to make money than to have that kind, but like nonprofits for veterans, there's 43,000 of them. Do we really need that many nonprofits for veterans?
Wow.
That's because somebody just like, I'm going to start a nonprofit for this, but so-and-so does that. Yeah, but they don't just do that. They don't do this one thing. And so I'm going to do all that plus that one thing, and then they don't talk. They don't help each other.
That's 43,000. That's an incredible number.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Wow.
And the question really is how many of those actually are doing anything for veterans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the VA, don't get me started on the VA. So back to your when you were talking about your benefits and you said you don't even know what your numbers are. I know you're set and everything else, but for most people to get to 100%, the medical coverage for kids and their spouses are covered. And that's why you really want to get there as much as possible. Yeah. And that's because it doesn't really come into effect. And majorly, those numbers until you retire and you get to a certain age, those numbers are ridiculous to get insurance at that point.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I know. No, I think that's such a cool thing that you're doing, because it's challenging. It's challenging to figure all that kind of stuff out, but it's great that we have all these programs that are,
there's so many of them. It's ridiculous. The tax, if you get 100%, you don't have to pay property taxes in a lot of states. In California, it's a certain percentage. Where you are, it wouldn't even matter. We'll just move on because I know the numbers. I lived in San Diego for over 20 years, and then moved back up here. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. There's no property taxes.
That's like what people who move to Florida and like Texas, right? Texas has expensive property taxes, 3%. We have 1 1/8 to 1 1/4 in California, plus any Melrose, depending on what you have. But so when people move there, the problem with property tax in Texas is it advances whatever your value of your house goes up, your tax goes up.
Yeah, right.
It's payment of that. Where in California, you have Prop 13, where it doesn't do the same thing, max 3% a year.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Anyway, I'm sure you got other things to do, Mike. Thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I had a good time talking to you.
Yeah, Ed, great, really great talking to you. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. And if there's anything I can help you with or anything, any vets who needs help, just send them my way. We'll take really good care of them. Or even for the show, I need additional people like yourself to come on the show. So if you have anybody you can recommend, I'd recommend, please send them my way.
Great. Yeah, we'll do.
All right, Mike, again, thank you so much for coming on and helping the brave today. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Ed.